Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Wheel and Wilderness Workshop. Today I wanted to talk about the power and electrical upgrades that I made to my hunting truck. When I talk about building a truck made for hunting, you probably get a very distinct picture in your head of a rough and tough, jacked up truck with big tires made for off-road, maybe with a gun rack in the back, lights on top, etc. And while my truck has some of those characteristics, one of the most important functions that I built into my hunting truck was for it to serve as a large power station. Power station? Why would I want my hunting truck to be a power station? In order to answer that question, I need to take you back to the beginning of my hunting journey. In one of my previous videos, I talked about the backstory and why I wanted to build a hunting truck. If you haven't seen that boring video, I'll give you a quick rundown now. Hunting is hard work. There's a reason they call it hunting and not catching, because there's never a guarantee, and it's usually hard work to achieve success. To give you an idea, we are up before the sun so that we can get set up to hunt before the elk start moving off their feeding grounds in the early morning to find a place to bed down for the day. And we are usually out all day trying to kick them up and find out where they're bedding down. And then we set up again in the evening when they are on the move to get water or to head out to their feeding grounds again for the evening. So we don't usually get back to camp until well after sundown. We hunt in northern Arizona in early December, and it's usually cold, somewhere in the low teens in the mornings with 30s or 40s during the day. In previous years, I would bring my 30-foot fifth wheel, which gave us a nice warm base camp to return to each night with heat, a stove, refrigerator, microwave, a toilet, and all the amenities. Over the years, we learned to bring prepared food that we could easily heat up in the microwave so that we could eat a hearty meal and immediately go to bed. As you can imagine, after being out hunting all day from sunup to sundown, hiking and freezing your butt off, all you want to do is eat and go to sleep because you know you're going to have to do it all over again the next day. Over the years, our traditional hunting grounds have become overrun with more and more hunters, and the elk have become harder to find. I suspect Arizona has been selling more tags to generate revenue, however, I don't really know for sure. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Either way, since more hunters have found our hunting grounds, we have gone deeper into the backcountry in recent years to get away from them and find the elk. 2 hunting trips ago was my first time going deeper, and I brought my fifth wheel. Long story short, we could not get the trailer in as deep as we wanted due to the primitive road, so we had 2 hunting camps going. One with the guys that were staying in my trailer, and another about 2 to 3 miles deeper into the ranch that we hunt on. When all of the guys staying in my trailer had to leave early, which was planned for some and unforeseen for others, I was going to be left alone. While I was fine hunting alone, I discovered that it was supposed to snow over the next few days, and I was concerned about being able to get my fifth wheel out since I no longer had any help. The other problem that I had was with getting around the ranch. Driving on those primitive roads with the dually 4x4 that I used to tow my trailer was painful, to say the least. Those dual rear wheels picked up every bump, and the suspension was not made for off-roading. My buddy with a stock Tacoma could cruise around at 40 to 50 while I was doing 5 to 10 miles per hour. As a result, I left my hunting trip early, and needless to say, I was not happy. It was on the trip home while I was stewing and upset about having to leave my hunting trip early that I decided to build a new hunting truck. No longer was I going to bring the trailer. I wanted to be more mobile and have the ability to get around the 800,000 acre ranch that we hunt on. But I also knew what that meant. It was back to tent camping and roughing it a little more. I knew that in order to keep my spirits up all week while hunting, I needed to be able to stay warm, have lights, eat good food, basically not suffer. I wanted to be able to use a microwave to make quick meals so I could get to bed quickly after a long day. I wanted to be able to use a diesel heater, charge power tools, be able to charge my phone and other accessories. And all of that meant I needed power. Lots of power. That is why I designed my hunting truck to be a big power station. Okay, so let's get to the meat and discuss what I did. I'll start at the front and work my way back and discuss the upgrades. I upgraded the stock Group 24 battery to a Group 27 AGM battery from Batteries Plus to have a little more power at hand for all of my accessories. The AGMs from Batteries Plus seemed to get decent reviews from others on Tacoma World, so I decided to give it a try. In order to mount the battery, I bought a generic Group 27 battery tray from Amazon, but threw away the tie-downs and used dual circuit battery tie-downs so that I could cleanly mount 2 compact circuit breakers on top of the battery. The tie-downs and circuit breakers are from PowerTrays.com. Additionally, I purchased STHQ billet battery terminals so that I would have more mounting points for power cables and accessories on my battery terminals. The 2 circuit breakers feed my custom power tray that I built, which I'll show you in a minute. The 100 amp circuit breaker feeds the compact fuse block on my custom power tray, and the 120 amp circuit breaker feeds my Switch Pro 9100, which is also mounted on my custom power tray. Here is the custom power tray that I built. Now, why would I build a custom power tray when you can go to powertrays.com and buy one? The answer to that is because I have a 6-speed manual transmission, and there is a hydraulic fluid reservoir for your clutch right where the power tray is usually mounted. The solution to the problem traditionally was to move the clutch fluid reservoir so you could mount a power tray in that space, until I discovered a much more elegant solution. I met a local guy in Tacoma World that was giving away some nice toolboxes. When I went to his house to pick it up, I saw his rig, and he also had a 6-speed manual and had built a custom power tray that fit around the reservoir. The best part was that he still had the template he used, and he gave it to me. After making some slight improvements so I could fit different components that he had, I built my own custom power tray. I purchased a 12 by 18 sheet of 1/8 inch 5052 aluminum sheet metal from Amazon, and I spent a good amount of time heating it up and carefully bending it into shape with a vise and hammer. I tried bending it using grips and tools, but even when heated, the only way I could bend it was with a hammer while using wood blocks to protect the metal from hammer damage. On the tray, I have a Blue Seas compact fuse block that is fed by a 100 amp circuit breaker on top of the battery. This fuse block is meant to provide extra power under the hood. For instance, I eventually plan to install lights under the hood with a switch mounted in the engine compartment, and it will draw power from one of the 4 circuits on this fuse block. Additionally, I have a 4-gauge power line running off this block to the bed of the truck. This is to feed the lights in the bed if I do not have my EcoFlow power station in place and still want to briefly use the lights. The lights only pull 40 watts total, but I ran a 4-gauge power line in case I wanted to draw more power later. Also on this tray is a Blue Seas terminal block. This has 8 separate connection points that corresponds to the 8 circuit switches on my Switch Pro 9100 controller. This is how I connect all of my accessories into my Switch Pro. The Switch Pro, which you cannot really see here, is hanging down and underneath the power tray and is fed by the 120 amp circuit breaker mounted on top of the battery. With the 100 amp circuit breaker feeding the compact fuse block and the 120 amp circuit breaker feeding the Switch Pro, I not only have proper overload protection, but I also have the ability to turn off either circuit at any time if I need to work on my electrical system. Last, I have a common bus bar. This is my negative terminal connection point for all of my accessories attached to these 2 power blocks. Inside the truck is the Switch Pro 9100 panel where you turn all of your accessories on and off. Since I have a manual Tacoma and it has this extra clutch start cancel button, it was hard to find a custom panel insert that fit in this location and had the correct size slots for these stock switches. However, I was able to find one on Etsy through Fitzaprint. As you can tell, the material used to print this part is a different color from the Tacoma dash material, but overall it fits perfectly and doesn't look all that bad. 3 large cables run from the engine bay down the driver's side frame to the bed of the truck. One 4-gauge for the EcoFlow alternator charger, one 4-gauge for power to the bed from the starter battery, and one 4-gauge for the negative connector. On the roof of the Alucab, I have a 200 watt fiberglass solar panel from Bouge RV that is mounted to the roof of my Alucab using 1 inch times 1/2 inch slotted aluminum extrusion. In the bed of my truck is my EcoFlow Delta 2 Max. This is what provides power for all of my accessories and everything when I'm camping. It has 2048 watt hours of battery storage. It can handle appliances up to 2400 watts, surging to 4800 watts, which is more than enough for a small 1000 watt microwave or almost any other tool or appliance that you would want to run out in the forest. The custom power box that I built in the bed is where all the electrical connections to the EcoFlow battery are made. The box is made from a large plastic box I had in my garage and I repurposed into a power box for all of my connections. Mounted in here is the EcoFlow alternator charger controller box, as well as all the power connections from the front and solar on the roof. The EcoFlow battery is charged in 2 different ways. First, there is solar on the roof of the Alucab Contour canopy. Since the EcoFlow has a solar charger built in it, all I had to do was find a way to plug the panel into the charging port and I was good. The solar panel cables run into this power box and then terminate at an XT60 panel mount connector so that I can use a standard XT60 power cable to connect the charge port on the EcoFlow to the power box and disconnect them when needed. Since we usually drive to our hunting location starting each morning, I just make sure that I leave my truck parked in the sun so the EcoFlow battery in the rear is getting charged all day. Additionally, I have an EcoFlow alternator charger which, when turned on, provides up to 800 watts of charging power to your EcoFlow battery while driving. I mentioned turned on because that is about the only flaw I've found so far. There's a manual switch that you have to turn on each time you turn the truck on, which is why I have this hole cut in my power box so that I can easily reach in and press the button. If you have a lot of gear back here though, it's less than convenient, so I would love to find a better solution in the future. The alternator charger also provides me with another advantage. If my starter battery ever dies, I have the ability to reverse the flow and jumpstart my battery from my EcoFlow in the bed. The EcoFlow battery in the bed powers all the lights in the bed so I can run them for as long as I like while I'm camping or hunting without having to worry about killing my starter battery. I live in Arizona and I don't want to keep that expensive EcoFlow battery in the bed year-round baking in 120 degree plus heat. So in the event that I want to take it out, but I still need to use the lights, I have the ability to switch this Blue Seas battery switch and run the lights off the starter battery. The LED lights only consume about 40 watts, so it's not really a big deal to run them off the starter battery for a short period of time. The lights in the bed run off the 12-volt barrel ports on the EcoFlow. Additionally, I have 3 120-volt power cords running off the EcoFlow that I can plug extension cords into at camp to run any appliances that I need. During my hunting trip this past December, the power station worked perfectly. We were able to have lights, heaters, electric blankets, and a microwave without any problem, and with plenty of extra power to spare. In the evening, I would return to camp with a fully charged battery, and by morning we were usually down to about 70% power. So we had plenty of power to spare, which is good because I know in future trips we're going to be using even more power. So there it is. My hunting truck is a big power station, and now you know why. Thanks for joining us here at Wheel and Wilderness Workshop, and we'll see you next time.